Welcome to the cooking class video for eggs. Let's get started by testing our eggs. Usually, the expiration dates aren't super accurate, and a good way to check is fill something with water and drop the eggs in. If they float, they've gone bad. If they rest on the bottom, they're still good, but you can usually tell if their lifespan is nearing its end because they're starting to lift up a little bit more from the bottom. Let's get started with an easy one, scrambled eggs. You want to beat the eggs if you want a really nice, fluffy scrambled eggs. You can do this with a whisk, a fork, or chopsticks. All of them work. When you're beating the eggs, you want to use your arm, but a bit more of your wrist to get a lot of that vigorous whipping motion. And you really want to whip the eggs to get a nice, airy, homogeneous mixture with the whites and the yolks well incorporated. And be okay to get to scrape the sides of the bowls a little bit in order to really make sure that you're picking up the material and beating it around. Americans tend to overcook their scrambled eggs, and we're going to try to not do that in this case. So we want our pan to be pretty low, like low medium. Definitely not burning the butter when you first place it in. And then you simply pour the eggs in and scramble them. The amount of scrambling that you do and how vigorously you do changes the size of the curds, and that changes the texture of the eggs. So a harder scramble, a faster scramble creates smaller curds, and that'll be a fluffier egg, while a slower scramble, letting it sit for a while and then scrambling it, will create larger curds, which is more egg and protein per bite. And you want to make sure to take it off the pan while it's still a little liquidy so it can cook to its final state on the plate. Overeasy is pretty straightforward. You just crack the egg into some oil and you want to let the whites cook through, so become white, solidified. And after the whites have cooked through, then you'll simply just flip the egg over easy onto its side. Try not to lift the egg too high when you flip it, or else the yolk may crack. And then you want to have a nice runny yolk when you're done cooking, so let the whites cook on the other side. With our Sunnyside Up, we're going to use the lid technique. And all you do is you simply lay the egg down onto the pan, and then you place a lid over top. And what happens is it will steam the egg and steam the top of the egg to cook the whites completely, and hopefully leaving the yolk still nice and runny. It leaves a nice pretty egg. You don't need to mess with it or anything. So we're boiling some eggs. We let them rest to get to room temperature. And here the water is at a good roaring boil. We also have an ice bath to stop the cooking process immediately after and let the egg separate itself from the shell. So we're going to do a hard boiled and a soft boil. So we have two different eggs. They'll just come out at different times. And then we'll let the heat go down a little bit more, closer to a simmer. So a lot smaller bubbles, a lot less turbulence in the water. And then we'll let that sit for 5 to 8 minutes or so. Okay, so it has been 5 minutes, so we'll grab one of the eggs for that soft boil action. Simply pull it out, and then we'll set it in our ice bath to immediately stop the cooking process, and also, once again, release the egg from the shell a little bit better. And we'll leave it in here for 1 to 2 minutes. In the meantime, we'll let the other egg cook to a hard boil, which is about 2 to 3 minutes more than the soft boil egg. So it's been 2 to 3 minutes, which should be good enough time for the hard-boiled egg to fully cook through. If you do it too long, you'll get that one weird green sulfurous ring around it. And once again, we're going to shove it in the ice bath to stop the cooking process so that we don't get that weird ring around it. And later, after we peel these, we'll show the insides to show the textures of what we want the eggs to look. Now that we've cooked both boiled eggs, let's crack them and see how they turned out. So there's a few methods that you can do, but it should be pretty straightforward. Just crack around the side and then start peeling. It should come off fairly easily. You just slide your finger along the whites, and there we go. That's a clean release. Nice. And then we can rinse it a little bit to get the small shell bits off. And there it looks pristine. Okay, and let's see how these turned out. We want the hard boiled, based off the feeling this doesn't have as much give. This one has a little bit more give. This is the soft boil. So let's try out the soft boil first. We want the yolks to still be runny. There we go. Nothing too hard around the edges. This could be a little bit overcooked since you see it solidified, but the majority of it is still nicely soft, so that's great. And here you can see we could have done it a little bit longer because it's still a little bit more orange towards the middle, but we don't want to do it too much longer or else we'll have the outsides of the eggs overcooked. We want a fresh egg for poaching an egg so that it holds itself together, and here we're going to crack it into a container, in our case a pudding container, but you can use a cup or a bowl, just something to control the release of the egg into the water. And we're going to do the whirlpool method here, where we create a whirlpool in our simmering water pot. We want small bubbles, nothing too crazy or else that'll disperse the egg. And as you can see, the whites are wrapping around the yolk, which will hold the poached egg all together. And if the bubbles aren't strong enough to release the egg from the bottom, you can simply stir it a few more times to make sure that the egg doesn't stick to the bottom. But you definitely do not want a boiling pot of water, just a simmer somewhere along the spectrum. And you want to cook the egg so that the whites are not translucent anymore. You want them to be a solid white, but you definitely don't want the yolk to be cooked through. You still want a runny yolk. We're going to use a slotted spoon to retrieve our egg so that the water can drain from the egg. And we're also going to place this on a paper towel. You want a nice spongy texture, bouncy almost, where the yolk definitely feels runny but it's cooked through. And you can set it on a paper towel to help drain and grab as much water away. You don't want it soaked. And you can even use the rest of the paper towel to dab on the top to make your poached egg as dry as possible.